Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am tonight's entertainment here from the North Star Recording Studio, also known as the North Star Recording Bunker, because we have two federal inmates on the loose here. About 2 miles from me, the federal Supermax prison, they busted out. So, hey, Cameron, welcome. Thanks for being in the chat. So a couple updates here. Wasn't going to do a show tonight, but by God, there's just too much crazy stuff going on here to not do it. As you can see, I've got the military look today. Few reasons. One is we are shelter in place, stay safer at home, or whatever the hell I guess you call it, through the 26th of May now in my state. So basically, spring's gone. Second, this morning, my phone buzzes, we get a call, our landline, all of that stuff. Escape prisoners from our Supermax state prison here, right? The prison that had Jeffrey Dahmer as an inmate. So I'm going to read the story about that because it's pretty crazy how these guys got out. It's not a Shawshank Redemption type thing going on here. It's absolutely nuts. So I'm going to talk about that. Got a couple other things just want to touch base on. Felt like tonight's the night to do a show. So yes, down here in the studio, recording studio, the North Star Recording Studio. Let's get this damn camera. Jesus. All right. Yeah, I know there should be a better way to do this. When I work between programs, it all kind of goes wonky. All right, here we go. First of all, story with the hat. USS Fox. Best friend in high school. He enrolled in the Navy and he got on the Fox. And the Fox has been decommissioned years ago. But anyway, he sent me this hat. So I'm wearing it in honor of him. He is fine. He's doing well. But why the hell not, right? So a couple other things here at the start. Ouch. That's going to leave a mark. Here's my book, School of Errors, Rethinking School Safety in America. It's $30, right? It's on Amazon, or else it's like 15 in Kindle. It's a great book, Chaos Theory. And if you read it, leave a review. Leave a review. I appreciate that. Been stuck in the 20s for too long on that. Otherwise, I'm not here to sell you anything, right? You go to my website, the book's there. There's nothing else. I don't have anything else to sell. Few things. If you can subscribe to this channel, I'd appreciate it. If you can hit the thumbs up, I'd appreciate that. I produced a lot of content here in the last couple of weeks, so it's been really good getting that stuff out. So let's talk right now about what's happening right here with the doc. All right, so we have two prisoners who escaped this morning from our Super Max prison here in town. It's located 2 miles from where I'm at, Super Max prison. I'm going to read the story in the newspaper. It's almost comical of how these guys got out. Honestly, I'm not embellishing this. It's absolutely crazy how kind of easy it was for these guys to escape this maximum security prison. So this place is close by. It's not like right next to where I live, but literally it's 2 miles away. I bike past it when I do my favorite bike route, so it's good times. This thing was built in 86, so it's like a modern prison. It's a modern looking prison. It's not the Shawshank Redemption type image. But yeah, so this is a modern prison. And in 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer from Milwaukee, he was imprisoned there and he was murdered, right? So this was the whole deal. This prison located 2 miles from me. Overnight, these prisoners escaped the Supermax prison. So let me read the article, which is amazingly bizarre. Okay. So anyway, well, let me do this. Here's what I got on my phone this morning. The phone buzzes like if there's a tornado or something like that. It says, report of inmate escape at Columbia Correctional Facility. Please lock your doors and stay home. If you see anyone suspicious, call 911. Okay, yeah, I get that. So the phone is going off. They're calling the house and all of that. How the emergency network works. Here's the deal, though. Okay, so the deal is these dudes are wearing civilian clothes. Like they don't have to wear the prison garb. Apparently, I don't know how the hell the whole thing works, and they look like probably anybody in my neighborhood. Like so. What is suspicious? What is suspicious right now? We've all been locked inside for the last month. Anybody outside is kind of suspicious, but I guess, it's this whole thing. Stay inside, lock your doors. Yeah, I get that. Stay home. Yeah, which we had to do anyway, but this is weird. What I did is I secured the property, right? And we butt up against parkland, which is all wooded and brushy. So, I'm just scoping out the area pretty well, going up and down in the back, kind of protecting where my neighbors are at. And yeah, I'm ready to give these guys a run for their money if they've decided to somehow camp out here in my, in the back 40, which they didn't, but who the hell, nobody really knew where they were at, right? So yeah, I cleared out the neighborhood pretty well. Wasn't real hesitant on doing that. The doc was in a pretty feisty, pissed mood. Because yeah, this thing comes through and then anyway, so here's the article. You're going to love this. This is our local paper. So we're a community of 10,000 people. We have this Supermax prison, again, where Jeffrey Dahmer was. It's in our town. It was built in 86. So here's the article. 2 inmates escaped Thursday morning from Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage and remain at large. Well, first of all, let me explain this to you so you don't think I'm as crazy as how I'm presenting right now. In front is me. This is an image of me. Over here, these are my show notes. Right is the internet. So as you see me kind of looking around, that's what's going down. Okay. So these 2 inmates escaped this morning. Their names are James Robert Newman, age 37, and Thomas E. Deering, 46. So we're getting a lot of information right off the bat. They give pictures of these guys. The Columbia County Sheriff's Office received a 911 call from the Columbia Correctional Institute at 4:59 a.m. regarding an escaped inmate, Sheriff Roger Brandmer said. Okay, let me pause it there. So you call 911 if you're a Supermax prison and 2 prisoners escape, not just 1, 2 escape, but your system then is to call 911. I don't know. It doesn't seem to fit, right? Am I the only one? Like chintz cripes? Like what? Seems there should be another process in place for that, but I don't know. So let's just read on. After deputies arrived at the scene, they learned 2 inmates had escaped by climbing over 2 of the high security fences. What? Like these are huge fences. I just go by this place all the time. Huge fences, razor wire fences, and apparently they climbed over them, and then they have guard towers up scattered. Nobody's watching this. There's not electrical. There's not movement scanners. I mean, really, they climbed over the fences. Okay. Can't get any weirder than that, right? Yeah, but it does. Let's keep reading. A neighborhood search was immediately conducted. Yeah, great. Brandmer said, who's the sheriff. Law enforcement initially used drones and canine units to search the area around the prison. Yeah, I guess, but they're not going to be around the prison, right? There's an interstate that goes by the prison. And if you escape from prison, the last place you want to stay is by the prison, right? I mean, hey, David B., welcome to the show. David B., Chintz, Cameron, thank you for being here. It's an impromptu, but this stuff is just, I couldn't write it better than this. This is pure comedy of craziness. So anyway, this morning, yeah, two prisoners broke out of the Supermax near my house. So the police conduct a search of the neighborhood. The escaped prisoners went to a local hotel and were picked up by Portage cab and transported to Poinet. What the hell? So the escaped prisoners, all right, they go to a hotel. Now there's a couple of hotels close to the prison. So, and they've got their civilian clothes on. And they ask for a cab. They get a cab, and then they go to Poinet, which is the neighboring town. It's literally 8 miles away. And they were dropped off at a Piggly Wiggly at that town, which is a grocery store. And then somebody else picked them up, and they're gone, and nobody knows where they are. The inmates apparently left the Portage area where I live, according to law enforcement, and being notified of their escape. But anyway, of course, they left, right? Because the cab driver said, I picked them up and I took them to this location. The Department of Corrections is working closely with the Columbia County Sheriff's Office and various other law enforcement agencies on this ongoing investigation. So they have no idea, and no idea where these guys are. The State Department of Corrections said in news release, these individuals are considered dangerous. Anyone with information regarding the whereabouts of these individuals should immediately contact law enforcement. Yeah, we get it, right? Oh, it's Germantown Runner. Germantown Runner, welcome. Okay. Residents in the area received automated phone calls about the prison escaped and were urged to lock their doors about 6 a.m. today. Yeah, that was pretty freaky when that came through. It's like usually the only time is like if there's a tornado warning, we get the same type of thing. But So about 8 a.m., the Portage Police Department said it believed the inmates were headed toward Madison, no longer in Portage, but they didn't really know that anyway. But due to the escape, Portage Community School District did not deliver meals that day. Yeah, we're notified of that too. Both inmates had escaped. Get this, okay? These guys are veterans. They're seasoned at this. This isn't a rookie deal going on here. Both inmates had escaped from custody before. Newman escaped from a supervised living facility in Jackson County on July 17, 2012. According to state DOC records, he was located, placed in a supervised living facility July 24, 2012 in Florida, then Jacksonville. But the deal is this is a maximum security prison where they're at. So it's not, this is huge. You drive by it, 30-foot fence, guard towers, guys with guns, and all of that stuff. This is as hardcore as it gets for Wisconsin prison. So anyway, so both of these dudes had escaped. The other guy, Deering, he escaped a Waupun Correctional Institute, which is another in Wisconsin, October 4, 2002, by hiding in the back of a delivery truck, and was placed in custody again 2 months later. So I don't know. But anyway, it goes on basically, and they show pictures of the guys. It goes on to say, we don't know what happened. We don't know, man. That's it. We don't know how they got out. How the hell do you not know how these guys got out, right? Yes, of course you can. The investigation is ongoing. They got out of prison, right? It's a supermax prison built in 86. It's modern, right? How did they get out of this? How did they get out of their cells? They got into the yard. They didn't get recognized. Even if you don't have the staff right now, let's say you're understaffed or whatever, don't you have the means through, night vision equipment, motion detectors, all of that stuff to pick up if somebody's climbing over your fences, like your razor wire fences? And it blows me away. It blows me away, right? It's absolutely uncanny. And the fact too that the deal is they can wear the civilian clothes. I don't know if it's overnight or what the deal was, but will they, can we recognize them? What should we be looking for? Well, it is civilian clothes. Yeah, whatever you and I have on. Like probably not this, but they have civilian clothes on. They've got a Rick and Morty t-shirt and a Detroit Tigers baseball hat. I mean, what the hell? So as of right now, I've got everything locked down upstairs. Got the lights on in the back. Again, we butt up against a large area of property in the back. And I don't think they're around here anymore because we're close to metros and there really wouldn't be much reason. But yeah, I mean, it's basically you're on your own, right? So I've got the place ready to rock and roll if it comes to that. I'm not really concerned about that. I'm also on a hill, so I've got a good defensive position. But what the hell? What the hell's going on here? And the fact is, I haven't seen police around all day cruising. I mean, I haven't seen cruisers around all day. But anyway, I got my USS Fox hat on. Let me go to the chat room. Germantown runner, David. There are no coincidences ever. Yes. Yeah. Chintz, they'll probably take over a car. Yeah. Dave, look for him in Wisconsin Dells. Yeah, laugh out loud. Wisconsin Dells, for those of you not familiar with where I live, I'm very close to Wisconsin Dells, which has water parks and big theme parks and all of that, which really is a tremendous place in summer. Now it's been shut down because of the virus. So, all of these attractions in Wisconsin Dells, it's really not, of course, the place to be right now. But my God, if I were, I'd want to go to the Dells. That's a great place to be. So anyway, I'm just looking at this, and so let me go over the message here that comes up from on my phone, and it's here it is. Report of inmate escape at Columbia County Correctional Institute, CCI. Please lock your doors. Okay, yeah. Stay home. Got it. Doing that anyway. If you see anyone suspicious, call 911. Suspicious? What the hell suspicious? I don't know what that is. And again, there wasn't any police patrol. I took this on myself. I secured the whole damn neighborhood. I mean, and my neighbor is doing the same thing. I'm like, if these guys are back here in the woods, we'll smoke them out, man. There's not a problem with this. This isn't going to be happening in my neighborhood. Yeah, house is locked down, keep the kids inside, do all of that, but Doc's doing a little bit of hunting on his own right now. So but again, these guys are gone. They have no idea where the hell they are. They'll probably find him, because they'll make some mistake or they'll whatever. But these guys are gone, right? But again, I'd be more impressed. I'd be more impressed if this was an Andy Dufresne. I mean, if you have to dig through your wall with a rock hammer and then you have to crawl through a 500-foot septic pipe to get out, that's one thing, right? But you basically somehow get over a fence pretty easily and you're gone. And you call a cab from a hotel? I don't know. Anyway, let's go back. Bull Rush, G.I. Joe, Doc, laugh out loud. Yeah. Well, I went back at the start. This hat is circa 1990, USS Fox. My friend was on the Fox for a few years and had sent me the hat. So yeah, actually I don't wear this much, and I don't wear it outside. It's more of kind of just display, but I feel like I have to have this military type presence today because I basically got myself in the damn Doc Army today of going out back, taking the measures that I need to take, which I'm not going to get elaborate into on the show. But of course, securing the perimeter, I butt up against a lot of parkland, trees, shrubs, stuff like that. So, I mean, if you're going to hide, it's not that hard to hide at the end of my neighborhood. And there's access because there's major power lines that kind of intersect. Like you could figure out kind of where you're at by doing that, by just following the lines. Like you'd have some natural way. And then eventually you get to an ice age trail and all of it. I mean, if it depends. But I'm back there. Yeah, literally. I mean, I'm covering a lot of ground today. Got the family secured down and got everything else. But yeah, I'm not afraid to make it rumble. I'm not. Same with my neighbor. He's the same thing. We're working kind of in concert with this, but these guys are out of here. Bull Rush says, Doc, you look suspicious. Go God, please. Yeah, nobody call me. And that's the other thing is like, I'm out there and I'm thinking, who's going to call me in? Like, I didn't have anything like a yellow neon vest or anything like that on, but yeah, I don't know. But, so the bit, welcome. What's up, Doc? Well, yeah, the Doc is sitting here and two escaped prisoners from a federal supermax prison in my area here where Jeffrey Dahmer was, and they killed him back in 94. So yeah, just a couple miles from my house. We had two prisoners escape. They have no idea where they are. So yeah, the Doc is in full out protecting the fort mode right now. But yeah. Got everything secured. Whoever was to visit here, it'd be a bad night for them. But I don't think they're going to. I think they're far away from here. But anyway, again. So yeah, the bit. Then collect the valuable reward. Yeah, I don't know if there is a reward. But isn't this crazy though? Like, isn't it crazy? Just going back to this article. So these dudes, they both had escaped places before. Okay, so that's a deal. They had escaped places before. One was in prison for kidnapping, theft. I don't know. All this shit. The big long list of what you get put in federal prison for, right? And again, they escape overnight and they climb two fences. And there's these big guard towers, right? The whole thing it's a maximum security prison. It's a modern maximum security prison. And they leave and they cross an interstate and they go to a hotel and they get a cab. And then they go to the neighboring town to the grocery store. And then from there, they hitch up somewhere else and then they're gone. It's just, and plus, like, we get no details from this internally, right? We get nothing else from the media, nothing. We're investigating how this happened. But how the hell does this happen? How does this happen? I mean, yeah, if they tunneled underneath the facility for 500 yards and came out on the other side, that's pretty damn impressive. I mean, for you to go out in civilian clothes and somehow scale this fence and be fine, according to the cab driver, you look fine. That seems to be a little too easy. I'm used to Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne. These guys needed to work for this. This was too easy. But yeah. So I'm thinking, what the hell is going on there? What's it like inside of that place? I mean, I don't know. Maybe a lot changed since Jeffrey Dahmer, got toned up with a metal bar there back in 1994. I don't know. You got civilian clothes. When did that start happening at a Supermax? I mean, come on. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, commissary. They should check out my wardrobe. It's not that impressive at all. Yeah, honestly. So let's go back to the chat room. Again, this was impromptu. I had some notes. I was going to do a different theme show, which I'm going to move into here in a little bit, but I wanted to hit on this because this is just nuck and futz, as Dickie Roberts would say. How the hell did two prisoners escape from a Supermax prison by just climbing the fence, not shooting anybody, not overpowering a guard? You know, nothing. There's no MacGyver science brought into this. I mean, there's part of me that I can, if I'm like, yeah, they got this, or something was smuggled in, you know, somebody dropped in whatever with a drone, nothing like that, you know. So it's not even an impressive story. It's a weird comedy. And how cool do you just play it to come into some hotel and just ask for a cab? Hey, we got to call a cab. I don't know how you got the money for it, but let's say you got it. I mean, it's weird. It's like a Rick Farley or Chris Farley, David Spade movie is what this is. It's like a bad version of the Blues Brothers, not written nearly as well. That's what this is. And who knows how the hell this will unfold. I'd like to interview the guys. Like, give me a chance. I'm two miles away. I can get in there with my Zoom if you're not going to let me have the camcorder. Let me ask these guys, how the hell did you pull this off? Why was it so easy? It'd be like, oh God, we expected this. We had extra tools, Dave. We had a lot of tools that we didn't need. We left the wrench over there, screwdriver. We thought the fence was juiced, but it wasn't. So you know what we learned from this? We would have packed a hell of a lot lighter if we're going to do this escape the second time around. You know, that stuff where you watch like the Escape from Alcatraz. Dave, that's sensationalized, Christ. It wasn't that hard at all. Razor wire. Oh yeah, you climb that stuff. There's always places to put your hand and feet. Don't worry about it. I mean, this is like what it's like, right? I don't know. What the hell? So let me go back here. Bull Rush, Doc, do you need a sport coat to match your camels? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I need like a tan. I have a brown sport coat that would go with this. So Yosemite Sam must be running that place. It's got to be crazy inside. It's got to be crazy. I mean, I need to get the insider story. I need to find somebody that works there. What county, sir, on Scanner Radio? Bobby Grant. The county is Columbia. Also check the county of Dane, Wisconsin. They're supposedly in Dane is where they're looking for them right now, in Dane County, Wisconsin. Dane. That's where you're going to be getting your most hits, but also Columbia County, where I'm located at. They think they are near Dane, but again, by thinking that, they have no idea where the hell they really are. Is Dahmer's house still standing? I don't know. Dahmer was Milwaukee, right? I don't know what happened. I think he rented an apartment, if I'm correct. I worked with a guy who worked with Dahmer at a chocolate factory. So a weird fact. So he was a nice guy. You know, you never know. Yeah, the guards are sleeping. Yeah, whoever was doing the third shift. And the thing is, I don't get this though. Don't you have redundant measures built in place in these systems that would recognize, like a thermal cam, somebody is running from the yard to the fence? Or wouldn't there be some movement on the fence that would trigger, you know, maybe just call me an old scientist, but wouldn't these technologies exist in 2020 that you could fairly automate most of this process? And you're not going to be doing like a bed count in the morning and say, hey, you know, Bob and Ted, they're not here. Like, where are they? And then you go back and look camera. Oh shit, they went over the fence. Come on. Anyway, hey, if you're here, please do a thumbs up on the show right now. Just please do a thumbs up. If you're not subscribing to me on YouTube, please do so. My subscribership has increased. I actually lost a couple for the reason that they got banned on their own channels. And then when that goes, when they're gone, then everything's gone. So, all right. Is voice coming through good here? Cause oh, there we go. Seeing some weird stuff with the mic. Anyone want to put, the bit chintz, voice coming through? Okay. Here. I don't know. It looks to be. Just got some weird. I've got a new interface. Yeah, thanks, guys. Paranormal. Hey, Kat, thank you from Canada. Thanks. Yeah, I've got some new software I'm interfacing in here, so I can not blue screen. I can green screen Not right now, of course, but during times I can green screen out, and I've been trying that. It's been pretty cool. I've been doing some like graphics on some stuff, like putting explosions and all of those things like flying saucers. Is really cool. Like I'm really primitive at that, so it's not like really cool, but for me, it's pretty cool. So anyway, just a recap, I've got 2 escaped convicts, federal prison guys who are never going to be released, apparently. Climbed 2 fences, and we don't know where they're at. So Doc today was securing the Doc neighborhood along with my neighbor, Tim. So between us, we have 100 years of experience, and we went through the weeds in the back and the forest and everything. And it was kind of fun, I'm just, hoping we're not going to have to eliminate 2 guys at the end of the day, but we didn't, neighborhood's cleared out. So let me move on to something else here that since I've got this couple things here. So anyway, I'm doing well. Face validity check, and I was out today. So after I got done with doing everything, I just kind of did the big drive through town to see what was going on, because I was basically trying to see where are the police in my town, considering we just have 2 convicted felons who are dangerous that if they escaped, just where are our police, like making the rounds. So anyway, here's something new in Dockstown. The basketball hoops are liberated. Dun, dun, dun. People are actually playing hoops again. So the hoops aren't tied up. Now the parks are all still roped off in police tape. Do not cross police tape. So I took some pictures because I'm figuring I'm either going to do an article about this or write a book about this down the road, about like face validity and the velocity of information, of how to process when so much information comes at you at so much time. And so I've had people ask me, they're like, are you going to do another book? And that's kind of like when people ask you, are you going to do another book? Doing a book is a hell of a big thing, like a big thing. You got to do an outline. You got to get it, approved by a publishing house. You got the contract to go through, deadlines, rewrites, and all that shit. It's not a fun process. It's a rewarding process, but not fun. And so anyway, I've been thinking about it. Some other people asked me, they're like, are you going to do it? And I said, yeah, actually, I think I've got the topic, right? The topic would be the velocity of information, and then also, hey, Paranormal Heart, you had a great book. Thank you. Yeah, School of Errors, for those of you right here, School of Errors, Rethinking School Safety in America. But really, it's a book about chaos theory, transitioning into chaos. First chapter, how thinking about a bagel can get you through the worst day of your life. So going to Bobby Grant. Thank you, sir. Columbia 135 listeners, Dane 65 listeners, Scanner Radio. Yeah, I've got to check that out. I think the Scanner Radio app, a couple of my friends have said, go on the Scanner Radio app. You can find out what's happening. Because it's the big thing right here, right? I mean, everyone is law enforcement. Everyone is trying to figure out where these dudes are. So anyway, I don't know where the hell it was. Oh, right. So doing a second book. So I took pictures of parks in my town, and it really is this surreal post-apocalyptic feel to it. Especially like if I just do them in black and white, because nobody's there, right? They're all roped off, and police lines and stuff like that. Beautiful parks, playground equipment, everything's roped off. So I got some really cool images today. The sun, perfect angle, and I'm kind of just checking out what's happening in my community and stuff like that. River was up a little bit. Wisconsin River runs by. It's been a little high lately, but just the way that it is. But yeah, I got out there, and so yeah, I'm working on the second book, Velocity of Information, Face Validity, and part of it, Face Validity, right now. Build your network of friends all across the country and the world, but the country. Like I've got my friends, Brian in New York City, in the Bronx. Friends, I just talked to my friend Morgan in San Diego about an hour ago. Friends all over the country, and you just say, authentically, what's happening by you? When you go outside, what's happening? So I stopped today at our hospital, checked out the entrance where it says right here for respiratory patients, and stayed there a little bit. Not much going on. People not coming in and out. And again, I know the whole story. Like people are like, oh, it's like a restaurant. It's busier inside than it is outside. Like, you don't see what's happening in the kitchen. Yeah, I get all of that. But, for face validity, it hadn't changed a lot, at least here. Again, going to the parks, going to the armory, checking things like that out, talking to friends, right? Talking to friends and saying, yeah, what are you witnessing? And Brian Bowden, who, shout out to Brian Bowden in the show. He was on episode 128 of the Safety Doc podcast. So Brian lives in Manhattan. He was going out and doing 5-minute video clips of what's happening in Manhattan. So as he's encountering stores, are there things on shelves? What are people doing in the community? People are out with leaf blowers. That doesn't seem normal, but they're doing that. And what things stand out? Well, here's postal delivery. Some people have gloves on, some people don't. So it's this whole phase validity thing, trying to figure out what's happening in your environment, especially now, with the COVID stuff going on. We just were notified in Wisconsin today, all schools are closed till the end of the year. And then also we have another 5 weeks of safer at home order, which is basically stay at home. So you can get tied up in the media, right? If you just watch the media, the local media, national, all of that stuff, you just wound up, you get told one thing. But if you actually have a network of friends, if you're talking to Brian, and I'm talking to Brian, say, Brian, what's happening? He's like, hey, Dave, I was out this morning in the Bronx, and here's what I actually encountered. Here's what I saw. Here's what was happening. That helps a lot. That you need to know phase validity. So I'm going to write about phase validity. And I wanted to get those snapshots today because in the book, I want to have a couple pictures of these playgrounds, just for context of kind of what we went through. So, yeah, Cameron, I wonder when the gym's open. Yeah, it's a good question, man. I'll tell you what I've been hearing too from my school connections across the country is that the schools will have very stringent criteria that they'll need to adhere to open up again, such as UV lighting that would be put into every classroom. So when kids weren't in there, this UV lighting would be flashing to kill bacteria. That was kind of a big thing with MRSA back in 2014. It never caught on that big, but now it is. Like, they're selling these devices. So even to open up a school or a gymnasium, or a gym or a workout place, like your local gym, you're going to have a lot of stuff that's going to have to be in place. And part of that's the insurance carriers. They're going to say, if you don't do this or have this equipment, or these handheld UV things that you're waving over stuff on a regular basis, or limiting the number of people you have in, or some type of social distancing with your equipment, we're not going to insure you. Like, that'll just be the thing. So I've been hearing a lot of that. And this is all new, right? Like, none of us 2 months ago even thought about stuff like this. We didn't know what social distancing was, quarantine life, that stuff. So they're kind of inventing this stuff as they go along, but oh man, I don't know, Cameron. I think it's crazy. You talked about they will need more windows for sure. That's interesting stuff, right? Because windows, we know UV, regular sunlight, is a disinfectant. Now, I'm a school safety guy, right? I wrote a school safety book, and it's interesting because, like, a lot of the new schools for safety construction, quote unquote, they built them with very few windows or without windows as a safety measure. But so now when you look at coronavirus and natural sunlight and stuff, you've just created a lot of buildings that don't even have this kind of stuff. So David wrote to Germantown Runner here, gyms can open up in phase 2 of the president's plan that he announced this evening. Good. Yeah. So I haven't kept fully up on the different phases of the plan. I know in Wisconsin, we were extended out now, I think through May 25th for a safer at home. I'm hoping my small engines place opens up, because I got to get my lawnmower in. It needs to get in. Anyway, we had what is phase 2? Yeah, there's a lot of phases. Dave and Cameron and Chinson, as I read what was coming out of, like, and it's weird too, like, the states kind of bonding together, like the East Coast states, the West Coast states, and now the Midwest. Like, I'm not sold on all of this. Like, I still think it's going to be a long process. I think they ought to put something out there. I just don't, they're saying testing and then, like, no new cases, but I don't know. Are you going to test that people have antibodies? And if they have antibodies present, then they can go back to work. And so I think it will happen, but I think this multi-phase plan is more, I don't know, wishful thinking, propaganda, not propaganda in a negative way, but propaganda in a way of saying, like, we have to tell you something. So here's what we think the plan will look like. And as time goes by, it'll get more apparent. But anyway, so we had Nick August. Welcome, Nick August. They're doing it to preempt Trump as a political move. Yeah, this stuff is completely political, right? In my state, the election, there was between the Democrats, Republicans, and governor, there was a big battle on whether we should hold the election face to face and whatever. But when it didn't go the way of our Democrats, our governor, 4 hours later, we hear that our state parks are closed. Like, our parks are suddenly closed. So we have a lot of things right now which are being political footballs on what is being closed and what's not. Like our golf course is open today. Golf courses in the state open. Just have to keep a tee time and a social distance. But you can't go to a state park. We have state parks here, thousands of acre state parks. You can't go to the state parks. They're closed. If you go there, you'll get fined. They'll take your license plate. You'll get fined. Yet you can go golfing. So yeah, it's garbage. So we had a referendum last week. Like there were many school referendums on the ticket. And some of these were big, like $90 million school referendum. And I'm thinking, and I said this, these aren't going to pass. I mean, people know that they've just been, they've been furloughed. Their friends have been furloughed. Stock market's kind of acting wonky right now. Futures are up for tomorrow, stock market. But if we really look at the economy, though, people are getting laid off, right? Universities are being shut down. All of this stuff is having huge ripple effects, stuff flooding into Craigslist. That's where I kind of like to check, like, what's really happening in the economy. Like, people are flooding Craigslist, they're just dumping stuff. But these school referendums passed. People are, we'll do the $90 million referendum. And I'm like, what the hell? And it was that moment in time, that single moment in time. And the single moment in time, I just realized my practical sense isn't matching the reality. Like, people are just voting this stuff because if you give them a choice to vote yes or no, they're voting yes. That's the deal. And I've shared this with people too. I'm not anti-school, anti-education, but the fact is virtual learning is here to stay. We don't need kids to be in school 5 days a week. It can be 2 days, and then it can be the rest virtual. I mean, all this stuff totally exists. Like, it would solve a lot of problems on busing, space, in buildings, whatever. But it's just crazy. This stuff passed. And I'm like, who are the people paying for this stuff? You're paying for this. This is your taxes, your mill rate. Come December, you're going to be paying for all of the stuff which you just voted through. Now, the argument, of course, is, well, we voted it through right now and we got great deals because no one's working and we could finance this thing at almost zero. Well, let me tell you, you could almost finance it at zero a year ago too. And this isn't a good argument. Like, you've got to tighten the belt during these times. This isn't the time to go out and to spend on all of this stuff. So I don't know. It's inverse. It's like today, I mean, the stock market, the future is up for 700-800 points tomorrow, yet we have record unemployment numbers. And people that I know, businesses that I know, aren't making payroll. And yet we have this weird dichotomy going. It's just crazy stuff. Let me go back to the chat room. So first, Germantown runner David B. Said there are 3 phases to get to fully open. The phases are triggered by the number of new cases reported in 2-week increments. So thanks for clarifying that. And Cameron wrote, the local bike repair shop is open. The owner told me he is secretly keeping it open. So get this. So the place that I take my bike, which is actually between here and Madison, right, where it's close to where they think these convicts might be at the moment. So I got a hold of the place and I'm like, are you guys open? And are you essential service? And the owner, he said, well, the fact that we have to pay taxes, yeah, we are essential service. And they do meet it under transportation. They meet the criteria under transportation. But yeah, I mean, if the bike place would have been closed, I'd have been kind of screwed because I needed a lot of work on my bike, but I was able to get it in there. But it's crazy. Like, our small engines place, and I took a picture of the sign today because he wrote on it. I know the guy, he's a great guy. He wrote on it, like, closed down by government decree. I'm like, that's a guy who's really pissed that his business is closed. And he's a great guy. Like, he's a terrific guy. And so I took this picture. You got to do it in a normal type of way that doesn't look like you're scoping out the place to rob it, especially when you have 2 convicts, like, on the loose in your neighborhood. So yeah, I did a little camcorder, took some camcorder clips today too for posterity, and then also for some member check video stuff. But again, it gets to be a little iffy when you're doing that stuff. There was one place I'm doing it and I'm thinking, I really can't shoot this stuff out here just because I'm afraid I'm not afraid, but I think someone's going to call me in for looking suspicious. Like, it's totally a normal area to shoot video. And there's not like people around that would be in the video. But it was just this high traffic area. It was just really weird. So I'm like, yeah, I don't need to deal with this today. I don't need to pat down. Yeah, paranormal heart cat off the bed. So Cat, thanks for visiting, and yeah, I appreciate that you spent some time here. Kat is up in Canada and in a different time zone, so it's later for her. But she has a terrific podcast, Paranormal Heart podcast. Find it on YouTube. It's a podcast I listen to. She has wonderful work. So, Red Crusader. Oh shit! What is up, guys? All right, Red Crusader. Well, here's the deal. Red. I'm going to do like a little update here. We had 2 prisoners escape from our maximum security prison located just a couple miles from my house. So got notified here through many means, including the buzzing phone and stuff. 2 prisoners escaped. They're on the loose. They have no idea where the hell they are. And they escaped, here's how they escaped. They climbed over 2 fences and they're gone. They didn't have any special equipment. They didn't break out. It wasn't an Andy Dufresne. They didn't have a picture of, Marilyn Monroe and, the covering up a hole in the wall that they dug and all of this stuff. No, they just left. They go over the fence. They go to a hotel, local hotel, and then they call a cab company and they get driven to the next town to a grocery store. And then from there, they get picked up and then they're gone. And so again, how does this happen? And then there's no updates from this, really. They have no idea. They have no idea where they are. They have no idea where these guys are, and it's crazy. And the other thing, people are asking, well, didn't they have like what should they have on, like a black and white prison thing or like orange? Well, yeah, no, they didn't. It's civilian clothes. It's kind of what we're doing. It was civilian clothes Wednesday, Civvies Wednesday here at the prison, at the maximum security prison. So yeah, you have no idea. They have no idea. I mean. It's just insane. It's just insane. Jesus. All right. Let me get to the second part of this, and then I'm going to wrap this up. So, maybe like 20 minutes, and then we'll call. If you haven't already, hit the thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed to the show, told somebody about it, I'd appreciate that too. So anyway, talking about morale. We don't have a national morale officer for our coronavirus. Like, that's not the job of a president to be the morale officer. If we go back to World War I, World War II, we can talk about the USO. Those are organizations or situations when we had people or organizations specifically designated to morale, keeping people's morale up. So I'm going to tell you, so it's called Civilian Morale, Welfare, and Recreation Programs. It's usually part of the military, but it's not a military operation. It's not meant for morale of the military. This is meant for morale of civilians. So right now, one of the questions that I've started to grind in my mind is, we are a solid month into the coronavirus event. We also know that once you get about 250 days as a soldier on the front line into an event, you're either captured, killed, or you have a mental collapse. And so we're talking civilians. What is the timeline for something where you're kind of at in the state of chaos, where things are changing? Like today, we had additional 5 weeks put on for lockdown and more restrictions on things. So how long do people last without really having a morale officer? I guess it's who is a morale officer? Is it Jimmy Kimmel at night, or is it whatever? I don't know. But anyway, hey, Sir Brian Bain Pound, Brian from the Bronx. Brian is here. That was you go back and listen to the show that Brian and I did about a week ago. It's like a prophecy, right? I mean, you'd have to go back and you'd have to look at this thing and say, what day did these guys do this? Because it all came true. Like Brian and I are talking about things like, they're going to track you by cell phone. Sure as hell they're doing that. Apple and Google come out and tell you they're going to, what if you have a genetic code you're predisposed to the virus? They're going to let you know ahead of time and say, by the way, now you have to stay home and you have to be here for the next 4 months. Is your employer going to be okay with that? Or are you going to then receive some government subsidy if that's the thing? I mean, all of this, like, we hit on so many things during that podcast. I think it's 128 that just happen. Like, they're just authentic. Like, we were just ahead of the curve. We were just perceiving, we're looking where the light is bending on the horizon. That's where Brian and I were. It was a hell of a show. So just check it out. It's really good. I apologize. It's perfectly leveled on Podbean and Apple Podcast, wherever it is in audio. It's perfectly leveled. YouTube, you got to mess around with it a little bit. After 8 minutes, it kind of levels out because I didn't press the level button on my software. That was all on me. But yeah, it's really a good show. So let me go back. A shout out to Sir Brian Bowden. Brian is in the Bronx in New York, has given us a wonderful face validity update. So thank you so much for that, Brian. Bobby Grant, Bobby, new subscriber here. Bobby, thank you. You're a hell of a guy. Hell of a guy, Bobby. Stay safe, Swiss cheese, if they come by. Yeah, it's going to be wild if they come by. And I'm in an elevated position where I'm at too, right? So I've got the high ground up here, but I'm just thinking, yeah, somebody tries to get into the house or near the house. It's a bad day for them. It's a bad day here. So yeah, the compound is all ready. It's all ready to go. We're in good shape here. The dock. Yeah, I don't need to sleep tonight. Sleep's overrated. I have coffee. I'm good. All right. It's like the movie The Burbs, right? Who's the neighbor, Dennehy or whatever the hell? He's on the roof. The ex Vietnam vet guy. I don't know if you know who it is. Put it in there. Tom Hanks was in that movie too. But that's how I kind of feel right now. I'm more pissed than anything else. I'm not scared. I'm just pissed that these dudes got out so easily, for one. I mean, I get it's one thing if you have this elaborate escape, be like, Christ, if they dug a 500-foot tunnel, and all of the stuff, and they had a brace sitting up and all the stuff. I'm impressed by that. I'm not impressed by two dudes walking out in their civilian clothes and just climbing over two fences and getting a cab. Not impressed by that. So let's go back to Mr. Chekhov raises shield. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. I remember that. Yep. Give the code 71543. Shields are going down. Khan, put them back up. I don't know. So here, what I did is I took 10 things, and these from practices, right, that have been done to either build or sustain civilian morale during times of war or pandemic or great strife. I don't know. And also 10 things that erode civilian morale. So I'm going to go over the 10 things right now that sustain or build civilian morale. Because right now we have a lot of people that are very anxious and nervous. Like I've people that are pretty solid in my world, like pretty stable stuff. They're cracking a little bit. And, I'm having conversations with them, and I'm starting, are you okay? And all, I don't know about this or whatever. I'm like, well, the worst is probably hit us, right? Like, if we got news tomorrow morning that the airlines were shut down, be like, man, I don't know. Not a big of a deal at this point. I mean, there's not a lot on this stuff that could kind of happen right now that would move me back out into this big chaos. Hey, a meteor's headed toward us. Oh shit. Yeah. Then we're back out here. That's bad news. So just going back. So yeah, Bobby, thanks for subscribing. If you know anyone, please subscribe, get him to the channel. Channel's been gaining momentum. I appreciate that. I am investing more in the channel. Also, so in my, equipment, things like that. I've always, I think, had pretty good content, but trying to take it to the next level. Chin's a Red Crusader. If I lived next to a maximum security prison, I'd have the deer slug shotgun ready until they catch or leave the area. Yeah, I don't live right next to it. But I mean, I'm close enough to it, and it's great. And it's never been a deterrent to living here. Things have been pretty under wraps. But at this point, this just, at face validity, right? It seems way too easy that you are able to escape the prison that you sent Jeffrey Dahmer to by simply going out and climbing over two fences. Like, that just seems too easy to me. Chintz wrote, Red, I'll have John Rambo, Punji stick traps. Yeah, Rambo. God, I remember that. I loved the whole Rambo series. When I grew up, we had a dude in the neighboring town. It was Wassa, right? It was about 35,000. There's a mountain there. There's a hill, Rib Mountain, they call it. I don't know. It's like the second highest point in Wisconsin. This dude went all Rambo on him in the 80s. And he lived on the mountain. And he lived, he tunneled out places. And he lived there for 2-3 years. And they could never find him. And finally, I think he turned himself in at some point, and then they found this elaborate, compound that he built into the mountain. It was really pretty phenomenal. That happened again, like up in that area maybe like a year ago. Some dude did the same thing, and I think he again turned himself in after like 3-4 years because he was just he was living. It's Wisconsin, like it's winter, it's cold, it sucks. Like at some point, like that's not a great option. And I think he said that, yeah, I'd rather be like incarcerated where I've got my meals and some heat and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. So here, anyway, let me go through this. So 10 things that build up or sustain civilian morale. 1, baseball. Okay, back in the 40s, they contemplated shutting down the baseball season, Major League Baseball. Now, a lot of the baseball players went to war, and so and not only just as promotional stuff, but I mean they're pilots, they're flying planes, they're doing all of this stuff. And then they also started the All-American Girls League. Remember, League of Their Own. That was from 43 to 54, but it was featured as essential for the morale of the public that baseball continue. And they brought up a lot of dudes like me who would never make it in the major leagues, right? But guys otherwise, so they got a chance to play in the major, kind of like a strike shortened season type of impact. So that's number 1. Number 2, if you can contribute to yourself or to others, and part of that is like victory gardens during the war. If you can plant gardens, if you can do stuff like that, that's a big thing. Kind of goes, that's self, like if you can keep yourself. Goes into number 3, organizing community like events. It's kind of hard during a pandemic, but back in World War II, they had scrap metal drives. That's why you don't see a lot of bikes and stuff prior to World War II, because a lot of these things were just brought in and melted down for bullets and stuff like that, and for guns, tanks, stuff like that. So right now, what I kind of see is people making masks, right? They're sewing up all of the mask and they're doing this stuff. And they're donating these into the, you can't use them in the medical sector, but they're donating them out to other places. That's kind of what people are doing right now. They're to keep morale up. That's a good thing, right? Another thing is that if you have a charismatic leader, if you go back and you listen to the speeches that Hitler gave, I don't understand Russian, but the charisma, right, of the presentation, a charismatic leader is a big part of civilian morale. I mean, think of Churchill, right? Movies and ice cream socials. There were actually guides to this that the military had well up until the 1980s on how to, in small towns, right? But think about, World War II during times of, polio, plague, stuff like this. They would go and if you could put a sheet outside of somebody's, like a garage door or somebody's house and have a projector, you could show a movie. And then if there was an air raid, like you could quickly like shut that down and get everybody out of there. But those types of things, an ice cream social, there was again actually a guide saying how to do this. My parents talked about this again. They were easy. It's simpler times back then, but they talked about that World War II thing where you bring in a projector and they would show on the side of a building, right, a movie like The Wizard of Oz or something like that, or Gone with the Wind, and this was to build this community morale, the spirit. And it's really big if you're in a small community. Like you have to you do that. If you're in a bigger community, you've got these things available to you, like a movie theater and some of those things. I mean, and today you got like Netflix and all of that, but back then, like getting people together, and still kind of things like that today. 6, and we're seeing this today, parades, right? Parades, there's a few things that parades do. One is you're recognizing people, like, so whoever's in the parade, whether it's military, right now it's healthcare workers, you're recognizing your healthcare workers, you're recognizing your first responders, stuff like that. I think these things have kind of gotten a little overdone, but right now, but yeah, it is kind of a thing. People recognize it, builds the spirit. The other thing is it's a show of force. Frankly, a parade is a show of force because you have millions of dollars of firefighting, ambulance equipment, and things like that. It's a show of force. There is a visual, an audio, just a sensational component that comes out of there that we can take this stuff on. Look at the equipment that we have. So there's a reason why these parades are starting to happen in these small and large communities right now. Again, and then I'm a little bit, so the parades for healthcare workers, and we're going to light the buildings up blue and all of that. I get it, but we're also forgetting, like, how about truck drivers? Like, they're the backbone of getting all of the supplies, all the stuff going on right now. It's not equitable what we're doing here on a parade. We're not like having a couple semis in there and cheering those folks on too. But I mean, maybe we'll get to that point. So number 7, sacrifice for those closest to the battle. So if you believe, okay, if I believe, yeah, I don't have my mask and rubber gloves or whatever because the hospital folks need to have those, or I don't have Lysol wipes now because they have those in the hospital. I feel like I'm sacrificing. That's a reason why morale would continue to be high. Like you're sacrificing for your fellow workers, like who are at the front lines. Number 8, equality of sacrifices across classes. You feel like everybody is contributing to this, not just you, like the people who are richer than me, the people that are poorer than me, and whatever. We're all contributing to this. That there's a sense of safety right now, that you feel like your government's providing safety. This was really important after 9/11. Like they put the aircraft carrier off of the coast, off of New York, and the reason they did that, they didn't anticipate another attack, but people could see the aircraft carrier, right? It was a visual sign that they could fly planes overhead. It was a sense of safety, a sense of strength. Number 10, conveying a clear outcome. Okay, so the clear outcome is saying, if you're the president, if you're the governor, whatever, your clear outcome is saying, listen, we're going to have peace when this is done if it's a war, or we're going to have health if it's a pandemic. We're going to have health. We get through this, we're going to be healthy. People are going to have immunity. We're going to be healthy. Things will be okay. And when you also do that, it's also subtly conveying to people what we're probably going to have hardships. We're probably going to have to accept some losses to get to the point of this being healthy again, right? So you convey this clear outcome. If you tell people this is where we're going to get to, it's a lot easier for people to go along that path. We just know that in general. If you tell people ahead of time, it's going to be rocky. It's going to be hard times. But here's where we're going to be. They can handle it pretty well. So let's get into what erodes civilian morale, or what really tanks civilian morale. Civilians, right? So let's go back to the chat room first. Red Crusader. Life goes on. I will survive if shit goes down. That's the most basic mindset anyone could have. Yeah, absolutely. Red, you're right on. I think it's a locus of control too. I mean, if the media will want you to bring you out to this macro focus of feeling that everything is falling down and you have to somehow support everything that's going on, whether it's the stock market or unemployment, everything going on. But if you go to your focus, your locus of control, which is you have control over what you're doing, the decisions you make right now, your house and where you're at, you have a lot more power. It's really mind, right? You've got it. It's mindset. Victory Gardens, David, don't forget Victory Gardens. Plant one. Yeah, Victory Gardens. Yeah, my grandparents, they'd plow up the whole yard front and back, and they'd be planting potatoes, corn, carrots, all of that stuff. And we're doing that this year. And it's a good thing for our kids too, to do a Victory Garden. We just got to watch out for the deer. We got a lot of deer, potatoes, green onions, any herb. We should have been doing this stuff all along, probably, right? It's something I think it's a good practice. There's no reason we couldn't have done this. Nick, great stuff. Great show. I have to run, but keep tuning again. Hey, thanks, Nick. Thanks for stopping by. So let's get into, here's the things that just tank morale. Okay. Just boom, morale's gone. Okay. If you can disrupt food supplies, or people become uncertain in their food supplies. Now there is rationing, right? We've had rationing in wars, but then people know, like, I'm only going to get so much sugar, like this week. I'm only going to get so much. But if you can disrupt food supplies, you can really damage people's morale. When people went to the store and they saw like all the pasta's gone, the soup is gone, that's a big hit to morale. Now it bounces back, but if this perpetually happens, this disruption in food chains, that is a significant hit, proven, okay, research proven, to morale. Yeah, take care, Nick. Thank you again for stopping in. Here's another thing. Events that last more than 10 months, or not 10 months, events that last more than 3 months, 90 days. So if you have something, a battle, you're talking about some event, a pandemic that's going on, once you get to 90 days, people are like, they're fatigued, they're tired, they want it to end. Make this end. So you have to do something. You have to shift it. You have to say, we're now into another step of this, another phase, or this is a new battle, or it's a new perspective. We're into this other component of it. So now you've just put this 90 days behind them and you're into a new, fresh 90 days or whatever. But if you don't do that, right, you hit this thing called finite voltage. And I talked about it in my last podcast and also in my podcast, 34 back in June, back in June of 2017. But there's this thing called finite voltage. the psychiatrist was Dr. Apple in World War II, basically saying people only can last so long before they either die, that they have a mental collapse, or they become a prisoner of war, like if it's in wartime. But that also goes to civilian time. You can only last in chaos. Now, chaos is defined. I wrote about chaos, right? This great damn book right here, School of Errors, Rethinking School Safety in America, but it's a lot about chaos theory. I wrote about chaos theory, worked with some of the best in the world on chaos theory. So chaos theory is situation and context are changing. And we have that right now. So like after 9/11, things stabilized pretty quick after 9/11. We knew we weren't going to be attacked on September 13th. We knew there weren't going to be additional planes, explosive things like that. We knew that, right? There was a consensus. But right now, we kind of are into this area. We're still out in chaos versus the last, 5-6 weeks of where we were at before. But we're still getting information. There might be a vaccine. There might not be a vaccine. It might come back in fall. It might not come back in fall. Now you have stay-at-home orders. If you're in Michigan, you can't go up to your cottage. You can't visit somebody, or you could be put in jail. If you're in Kentucky, if you go to church, we're going to take down your license plate. And I know that was all thrown out, but these are the things that keep us out in chaos. Like it's like you want to start camping, and then you're like, what the hell? I just camped on quicksand and the damn tent is sinking. So I got to lift it up and move it somewhere else. We're still kind of in that, so that's something. So anyway, events that last more than 3 months. If this thing goes on, this pandemic, and if we keep, stay at home through the next, month, if it goes into June and we start getting close to that 3 month, it's going to be really, really hard for people to deal with this as a morale issue. They're going to feel really beat down by the coronavirus, really defeated by it. You're going to see it. You're going to see it in relatives. You're going to see it in your friends. You're going to see some people are just going to take the psychological hit on this. And you're going to be like, oh, damn it. Life's changed. And we're not going to get back. It's social distancing and never see a baseball game again. I hate seeing people in masks. I can't see people smile. You're just going to see this stuff that's going to happen. So know it. I'm telling you, know it. Get out in front of it. Understand it. And realize that once we hit this point of this finite voltage, which is actually, it's a term, it's a process. A lot of people are going to hit this psychological kind of implosion with morale. So keep people moving on that. Keep people thinking down the road. Here's what here's what we're going to do 6 months from now. Here's what we're going to do a year from now, 2 years from now. Keep people thinking down the road. Red Crusader. Let me go to the chat room. Hey, if you get desperate for food wise, you can eat a lot of what's on certain pine trees, the needles and bark. Yeah, that's great. I saw a couple shows where I did that. Thankfully, I got a couple big pines out and back. Red Crusader, high in vitamin C also. Yeah, keep scurvy away. New growth pine trees is edible. Yeah. So I've got a lot of stuff that grows out in the back too that I could eat. Cedar tea. Yeah. David wrote, masks are now mandatory here in Maryland as of tomorrow when you go into any public building or space for both customers and employees. Wow. So this is what I'm talking about when we talk about chaos. We are technically in chaos because now that's something new, right? So Dave, this is something that has changed our situation and context if you're in Maryland. Now you have to do this everywhere you go. And what if you don't? And what are the reminders going to be? Is it going to be a reminder the first couple of days and then a fine? And what's it psychologically going to be like to see people who have masks and who, are wearing the mask here down, so all you're seeing is their eyes. And if they have sunglasses, you don't see anything. Psychologically, we take so much information from the cues that we get, the facial cues from people, that we've just been, we've just been denied that. So just that we prepare for that. So what he wrote, what wipes out morale? If you have a negative leader, if you have a leader who just is like, we're getting our ass kicked, this is not going well, this is bad, I don't know, throws the brakes on everything, either again, state, local level, whatever, people, if your leader's got that view, that's hard to overcome. That's a big hit to morale. Taxes is another thing. We don't have that right now. No one is jacking up taxes. No one is adding taxes into this mix, thankfully. But that's who knows where that'll go. Lack of medical care. So yeah, if we can't get our medical care, we've had to cancel a couple routine appointments that we had for some family things. Dentist isn't available right now. They're shut down. We can't get teeth cleaned. We're okay right now, but Like if you can't get in and get the dentist, some of those things, eye doctor, stuff like that, that starts to erode morale. Lack of success. If you feel that we're not making any success against a coronavirus, if you're like, Jesus, like it just seems like it's getting worse every day, more people are getting it, or people aren't, they don't seem to be getting better or what. I mean, I'm not saying these things are genuinely happening, like, but if that's your perception, like this lack of success, that kills morale. And that's where face validity comes into play, like with Brian, right? If we talk to other people that we trust and know from around the country and ask them what is authentically happening around you, you typically you're going to get authentic feedback. It might not always be what you want to hear. They might say, yeah, this is happening and this is worse than it was, and here's how. But in most cases, it's either steady or it's a little bit better. Like there's more food on the shelves, Dave. That's more streamlined, so you can get in and out of places better. So you're not having to waste your time with stuff like that. People have put systems in place. What erodes morale? The perception of the state as an enemy. This is an interesting one, right? This goes all the way back to 100 years of research. But when people feel that the state is working against them, when people feel they come out of this and they're going to be chipped or something like that, or that they're going to have their liberties taken away of, that their monetary stuff would be amortized. Yeah, the morale goes really bad. John Steele, a shout out to our good friend John Steele in the chat room. John Steele, coming to us from the Pacific Northwest. I also had John Steele on a show last year. So John, thank you so much. John, I was just sharing with everybody here that this morning, 2 prisoners escaped from the Supermax prison 2 miles from my house, and a pretty nonchalant escape. They just, in civilian clothes, went over 2 fences, got to a hotel, hailed a cab, went to the neighboring town to a grocery store, then got transportation. They're gone. Nobody knows where they're at. And that's the same prison that Jeffrey Dahmer was murdered in back in 94. So how the hell was that happening? And we just got a notice, stay inside, look for anybody suspicious, let us know. And I didn't see any police. So my neighbor and I kind of became, it was like Red Dawn here. Like I was Charlie Sheen. And yeah, and after that, who else was in Red Dawn? Who could be my neighbor? So yeah, I was Charlie Sheen though. Okay. Yeah, it was definitely Red Dawn here today for me. It was Red Dawn. We secured it. Wolverines. Like I had a spray can. Every fucking thing in my neighborhood has Wolverines on it. Like everything. So everything Wolverines, because we've got it. We secure this area. It's Wolverines. Yeah, Supermax is all prisoners in isolation. I don't know. I don't know. And the information coming out from the prison is nothing. Like we have no idea how this happened. We're investigating, and the prison called 911 when they realized these dudes got out. This is a maximum security prison. There is no level above this in our state. There is no level. You drive by it. It is, again, this huge fortress built in 86. So it's not some antiquated thing. And again, I mean, if it's an escape where you dug a tunnel underneath for 500 yards and, somebody dropped a drone off and all of these things, I'd be like, yeah, I can see how that could happen. I don't see how you can just walk out in your civvies and jump over the fence. But anyway, so here's something else that kills morale in civilians. This is a quote: inappropriate or excessive precautionary measures create anxiety and avoidance. So if you have people prepare too much, right? Too many precautions that they have to take, they get so anxious that they can't even function. What they gave many examples, but like always be looking around you when you're at a postal area, right? Because this is where people tend to make drops of propaganda, and there can be someone there who can kill you or something like that. Or I mean, all of these things. And right now, what are we hearing? Excessive precautions. Like you don't go outside, don't go to the grocery store, don't do that. All the state parks here are closed, but yet the golf courses are open. I don't know, but all of these things where you get people, you have to wash your hands, you have to cover your face, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. You get people so anxious and avoiding. Like people are like, "Oh shit, I'm not going to shop." Our malls and stuff are all closed in all of our stores here because even if they opened up right now, people are like, I'm not going to the store. I don't want to be within 5 feet of somebody. I mean, because they've been told this over and over again on the media right now. If you're 5 feet from somebody, I mean, 5 feet's an arbitrary number, right? It's an arbitrary number where they put these boxes down now, these on the floor, these green X's and stuff that you have to stand. It's all arbitrary. Like, who knows if it's that or if it's 10 feet or if it's 15 feet. But I mean, there's things that ultimately we're going to have some exposure to things unless we completely wall ourselves off. And then, of course, I mean, you create a system where if you don't have any exposure to this, you become extremely vulnerable unless there's like a vaccine. I mean, there are certain measures that we have to take, but we can't have people absolutely so terrified. And the other part, inappropriate, excessive precautionary measures. I think this goes in. I'm going to stop right here. Hey, John, if you haven't hit the thumbs up and subscribe, please do for the channel. I appreciate that. Thumbs up and subscribe. So John wrote, have you done any research on how diverse societies have lower social trust in regards to emergency preparedness? I might have. No, really, John, I have to think that one out a little bit. I'd say yes. It's one of those things. My memory doesn't, I'm literally like working off of a 3-page outline that I have over here. I'm not good in the moment of pulling that stuff out. But I did that stuff over different societies. Yeah. And then I'm fucking 50, right? I can't do this anymore. Like, it just doesn't, the machine doesn't work quite as good. I've got to go back. I have podcasts that I'll listen to and I'll be like, wow, I didn't know I did a podcast on positive recency or, now there's even, I don't know, there's one with a roulette wheel. I don't know what it was called. I just remember the thing. Yeah, but there's some podcasts I'm like, that was really awesome. And I'd be like, I had no idea. I don't remember doing it at all. And so I go back to my show notes. No, there's a sign of cognitive slide here in the doc. I don't think so, because typically I do a show and then I move on to the next show. But, and then, yeah, it's still I can find my house and find my way around on a map pretty well. But so this inappropriate, excessive precautionary measures, this stuff gets into when you have people, when you're telling people, hey, report your neighbors for having a gathering, right? Like all these websites now report people, they're like, shit, am I outside? How many people? Hey, you two go back in the house. That makes 7 of us outside. Now, I understand that we got a half acre of land here, but if somebody snaps a picture with a drone, we're screwed. They send it in, we're fined. So I think this thing is so crazy of precautionary measures. And I'm not saying there aren't appropriate things to do, but if you make people get so nervous, absolutely so nervous. Yeah. And so John wrote in the chat, your thoughts on how Sweden has handled the pandemic, no lockdown at all. So obviously going with a herd mentality, right? Saying we're going to have, let this go through, let people build up immunity to it. And I mean, it looks okay. It looks like it's functioning and working, right? I mean, this will be a forensic thing that we'll look back on. But it doesn't look like it's collapsing. I mean, like they have, and from what I've read, they have certain measures that, people are taking and recommendations, but I think to kill an economy is really coming to light, right? These unemployment numbers just skyrocketing. And my friends who, all over the country are saying, our community, when things open up, we're probably not going to have a theater again. The small parts place is gone. The paint store is gone. A couple of, these things are gone. That is one thing. Like, I can cut my own hair, which I'm going to try to do tomorrow. I can't do some of these other things. I can't fucking make paint on my own. Like, maybe I could, but I'm just saying I wouldn't trust myself to do that. Red Crusader, Red Scare level paranormal. Yeah. With McCarthyism back, of this Red Scare. That's what is happening when you put these websites up. It's a Stasi thing, right? It's where you feel now that you've been deputized. Like, I've been deputized. So I guess I have kind of pseudo been deputized because I'm patrolling my own neighborhood, trying to keep the escaped prisoners from breaking in. But it's this thing of, I'm going to keep my neighbor, I'm going to keep people in line, like I'm going to keep people safe. And you don't realize that everyone is doing the same thing back at you, right? They're doing the same thing. They're looking at you, and if they can report you for anything, they're going to do it. It's just insane. But it's an easy sell because it makes people feel powerful. Well, I can report you now because, your kids were having a pickup game of football at the field, and there were 8 kids on this 100-yard field, and whatever. And that's the kind of thing that goes on. It's insane. Johnny 5 wrote, I went to the grocery store today and felt like I was in a post-apocalyptic horror movie. Everyone in masks, two dudes in gas masks. Oh my God. So Johnny, one of the things I've seen the same thing, like the mask stuff is really picked up here in the gloves and just like people covering as much of their body as they can with bandanas, baklava, stuff like that, hats, sunglasses. So it's so dehumanized. For me, the doc's kind of an introvert anyway. I don't really, I like when I do stuff like I do a 100-mile bike ride on my own. I want people with me. Like I listen to podcasts, listen to Aaron Clary, listen to stuff like that. Masculine geek, I'm there. But I know I kind of function pretty well in this stuff. But it is really weird to see this because we take so many cues off of facial expression, other stuff. We're really removing a lot of that, and people just aren't going to give expression because they don't want to interact with people. They don't want someone to come over and talk with them. They want to get in, get their cereal, get their milk, get their Rolaids, get their Simply Green if there's Clorox still in stock, and a can of soup, and get the hell out of there. That's what they want. They don't want anyone to like tie them. Hey, I think I know you. Yeah, you don't know me. We've never met before. Like, just stay the distance. Like, just stay over there. Also, what erodes civilian morale is propaganda. We didn't see propaganda the first 6 days. I measured it really carefully on TV. What was happening? The news that was coming out. I went to CNN, the Drudge Report. Drudge Report's negative no matter what, but I was just checking out. Propaganda took about a week for propaganda to hit. Propaganda in the form, propaganda good or bad, but propaganda in the form of, we're going to start lighting up what the hell was it? The Empire State Building red, and then we're going to have the siren. They call it a siren on top. It was a red light going around, which I don't know how the hell that works because a siren is sound. If you can say red light, I understand light. It was a light going around, right? So, which really looked weird. And then they had and then they were doing, the commercials. We all got the emails, right? Hey, I'm here from REI and we're just telling you we're here for you. You're here for me. What the hell does that mean? I bought a shirt from you 2 years ago. Okay. And then everything like that. My insurance company. Hey, we're anything we can do for you. I don't know what you can do. Give me money, I guess. But I mean, all these things, right? We hear this. This is when the propaganda starts kicking in. People trying to surround you. We're there for you. Like, we're important. Yeah, whatever. And finally, what erodes civilian morale? Unanticipated attacks that disrupt routines and impede productivity. One of the things in World War II, the air raids, right? Air raids over London, over Great Britain. Air raids were always a kick in the nuts because you could be working in a factory 3 a.m, things seem like they're chugging along, and suddenly the air raid siren or things just bombs start going off. And the thing was, like, it just took a while to get back in the routine. Even if you didn't get bombed, even if it was a small bombing run and you're okay, by the time like you get back and try to get things fired up again, it's just hard to get back in the routine. So that's what people would say, whether working factories, civilian, whatever, they just said, and that's very much like over in Iraq, during the many campaigns in Iraq, the civilians would say it was the drone attacks that always threw them off because you didn't know when it was going to happen. It was unanticipated. It was hard to get back to your routine. So what would this mean right now for the pandemic? Unanticipated, not that, but unanticipated attacks. And I think what that would be, right, is if something sparks up somewhere where all of a sudden there's this hot zone, where there's a lot of people testing positive, they're going to hospitals. So suddenly, like, there's more restrictions. Things are clamped down. There's an 8 p.m. curfew or something like that. And that could really mess people up, right? Or even if there's things saying, yeah, we're going to further limit that how many people can go into a grocery store and things like that. So you might have to wait, much longer line, whatever, but things that disrupt routines. We're routine beings, like, right? Self-similarity. We always want routine. We want today to be similar to yesterday, tomorrow to be similar today. Like, not right now, because things are kind of nuts, but that's how we function. So when we get our routines disrupted, whether it's like a power outage and stuff like that, we kind of deal with it. Like, but right now we're at this chaos area. Here's a torus. Guys have read my book here, School of Errors, but it talks about torus theory. talks about the psychology of disaster, getting, like hurricanes. Had Katie Pachon interviewed hurricanes. Joplin, Missouri tornado back in 2011. This F5 tornado rips apart the town. 10 minutes later, a mom, Genevieve Williams, and her daughter on an iPhone put together a website, joplintornado.gov or .info, whatever the fuck it was. You can find it today, Joplin Tornado Info website. And they're like, okay, like we just had this rip through, fire stations destroyed, hospitals beat up. Here's what we know. Here's where you can get some assets. Like here's where we have some water that you can get to, a functioning water supply, some food. Here's where to bring stuff. Like within a few hours, a couple of people are helping out. In like 48 hours, this whole thing came together. So it's pretty cool. So I think the big takeaway on the morale stuff is the 100-day point, this finite voltage, we're marching toward that, right? And people are not ready for this. No one prepared for this, right? And a lot of you, I'm looking at the names over in the chat. You're solid. Like, this stuff, right? You've got this down. So you're going to be the people, though, that other people are going to lean on. They're going to come to you and they're going to say, how are you keeping it together? Or what am I missing because I'm freaking out? And you can help them out. I mean, it's helping people, with their local locus of control, face validity, what is actually happening in their setting, talking to people, hey, my friend out in Houston, my friend in the Bronx, what is happening right there? What do you see when you go outside? What is happening as far as lines? What's happening in grocery stores? What type of messages are you getting? Hey, the postal worker isn't wearing gloves and a mask. What does that mean? Maybe, just those types of things. Or now they suddenly are. So the thing's been taken up a level. Any parallels between COVID-19 and 9/11? John, actually I did a podcast on that. So if you want to go back, I just in the last month, I did a full podcast on that and did the blog post. And actually there aren't many similarities between COVID-19 and 9/11. It's much better to compare COVID-19 to Chernobyl of 96. And that was my last podcast. And I also did a blog post on that. And the reason is because, 9/11 happened and it concluded. And then, again, on September 12th and 13th, we didn't expect to get attacked again. But Chernobyl happened April of 1996. And then it continued to progress. Like there was more radiation, 10 days of radiation, high amounts coming into Ukraine, into Poland, into Europe, eventually worked over to the US. We were hearing in the US, our crops are going to be contaminated. You couldn't go outside. If it rained because of radiation coming down, we were hearing a lot of things that was unfolding for months, and it never kind of hit that hard, although it did hit pretty hard in the US. We forget about that. But every state in every state was recording radiation. We had radiation in our cereal back from 80, harvested from 87 well into the 90s. Radio, if you would have taken a Geiger counter over your cereal bowl, if it was off of the Great Plains, you would have had more ticks on your Geiger counter. That was a fact. But we lived through this. And the big thing too is cancer. We're thinking is how's it going to roll out for cancer. But so there's definitely a better description there, which I did pretty well in my last show. So let's go over here to Johnny 5. Honestly, given the restrictions and the unemployment numbers, things don't seem too bad. They could be a lot worse. There could be riots, extreme panic, but there isn't. Yeah. So Johnny 5, this is where Nick August was. He spoke about this on Masculine Geek podcasts about a week ago. And Nick was saying his perception was that we're kind of broken, right? We're not we're not responding, so vibrantly and robustly to this because we've kind of become soft on some of this stuff. And it's also weird because you talked about, with the unemployment numbers, but yet, people are getting, some stimulus checks. There's unemployment, the unemployment boost. The supply chains have been built back. Remember, I talked about that was right at the top when I went back on civilian morale. If you disrupt people's supply chains, like their food, if you disrupt their food chain for any amount of time, morale tanks. So the grocery stores, Walmart, things are pretty much back in stock. I mean, that's what I've been finding. And also, so Johnny 5, isn't it weird? The stock market is climbing back. And tomorrow, the futures are up 700 or 800 points already for tomorrow's futures. Yet we have record unemployment. Yet we have all of this stuff. In my state, we have another 5 weeks of stay safe at home or lockdown. And you would think that those things, but again, I guess the stock market isn't the economy, but those things would be transferred in like a transitive type property, that we would see that, and we don't. And people have generally adapted pretty well. People adapt well. Going back, you look at substantial events through history. There have been studies too, like what if we ever found that there were aliens, right? What if one day, like we just said, we've been contacted by aliens in this, like people, everything would kind of go wonky crazy for a while, like, but then people would level out. People would start to like make YouTube videos trying to like contact the aliens. Hey, like watch this video and stuff like that. They would adjust to it. And they only stay in chaos for so long. You only function in chaos for a limited amount of time. It's like after 9/11. At 9/11, there was this temporary autonomous zone, lower Manhattan, for about 9 hours. So people with boats were rescuing other people off and just doing what they needed to do. It lasted 9 hours. They rescued 500,000 people. Temporary autonomous zone, TAZ. And then it just faded away. And people adopt. People will force a new torus or new self-similarity out in chaos. Like right now, we still are out in this chaos zone. It still hasn't returned, but they're forging their way. They're getting used to things. And because for generally the mail is still coming in, right? We still the mail. We still get our food. We're still getting, our prescriptions, our TV, our Netflix, our internet isn't all choppy and stuff like that. For the most part, it's a pretty comfortable event for a lot of us. It's not that we're having air raids and shells bursting through our ceilings and killing everybody and stuff like that. So there are many things in this. Yeah, as you've indicated, that the panic's not there. I think what's going to happen is the psychological part, Johnny, the psychological part of hitting the 3 months, 90 days to 100 days. We hit that. We know that finite voltage, Dr. Apple, the psychiatrist studying World War II, additional studies. Once we hit that as a civilian population, that's going to be really hard for people, especially, we kind of get into early or midsummer. If things haven't significantly relaxed and rebounded for people, that's when we're going to see people really lose their shit. And yeah, let me go over here to the, anyway, yeah, I just let me mention this too. So the USO, like, what is the USO? What is a UFO? It's a fucking flying saucer is a UFO. But a USO is a United Service Organization. So the USO, remember Bob Hope, Raquel Welch, the USO tours, like they were great, right? Like to boost morale of the troops. And he used to do these for communities too. Like the USO used to go into the big cities and stuff like that. And you think about it being World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, but even recent, the USO still exists, but it's not a specific branch of the military. It's funded as technically a nonprofit. It's again not part of the federal government. But yeah, the USO started it started in 1941. President Roosevelt thought it made sense to unite a lot of service organizations trying to lift morale, and then this USO came to be. Marilyn Monroe performing for the troops, stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of, just talking, that's kind of a thing that we have, so the USO, well, not kind of a thing. The USO has been out there. Let's go over to the chat. And I've got one funny story. If you can hang with me here at the end, I got a really funny story. This is my contribution to some lighthearted, morale boosting stuff. It's a funny story. It's a hell of a funny story. Okay. John Steele, the worst part of these types of events is the uncertainty, which leads to anxiety, poor decision making. Yeah, absolutely, John. And I'm gonna get back at some point to, and not in this podcast, but I want to go through like the first maybe 72 hours when this hit, because like all the stuff that I was thinking about and the conversations, I'm having with my wife of how we kind of get things together here as a family and look at the long game. If this does start to play out the way that it could, I'm a dad. I got a couple of kids, here. So we got to make sure everything is as put together and is planned out as it can be during this time of chaos. We can handle these things. So John Steele, Chernobyl and COVID both had a high rate of uncertainty. Yeah, absolutely. That was a really good podcast. That was a good pod. It was the best artwork I ever did in Photoshop for that podcast. And that one was about a week ago. But And Chernobyl is interesting because right now, right, they're having the wildfires around Chernobyl by Pripyat in Russia, and they're releasing all of this radiation that was kept in the trees, and it's coming back into a cloud over Europe. So like their Geiger counters are picking this stuff up. Now it's not equivalent to what Chernobyl was, but it's like it's a 1-2 punch. That's like we could have something like if you have chicken pox as a kid, you can get shingles as an adult. That could be this whole thing that comes out of this coronavirus. We don't know. We don't know what this looks like. Maybe 10 years from now, anyone that has it starts to manifest some weird side effect or whatever, but it is what it is. Like it's friggin' life, right? Yeah, water's still working. Johnny 5 wrote, water's still working. Food, internet, you bet. The essentials, we're fine. We're really in good shape. Like we're really in good shape. And there's a part of me, I'm like, I wonder how we would respond if we were really pressed, if we were really tried. I think we'd be okay, but this isn't something that's really pressing or really trying us. I mean, for some of us, the worst part was our internet got throttled down and people were complaining about that. Where I placed an Amazon order and it said it wouldn't come in until June 5th. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I guess. I mean, if that's our inconvenience right now, I mean, come on. I mean, my parents lived in the World War II era. My grandparents in the Great Depression. Where you're cutting up a potato to put in onions, to feed an entire family. It's just crazy. But I don't know. We've got it pretty good through this. But it is this weird psychology, and there's this psychology though. We get to this 90 to 100 day point, you're going to see some really wonky stuff going on with people. They're going to start breaking on this. You're not going to, if you're over here on the chat, you're not going to be in that group, but you're going to be the group that starts to see it and say, shit, I know these people. Like these are my relatives or my friends. And now they're starting to say stuff that doesn't really quite make sense, or starting to lose it, or they're just starting to get so anxious. You just got to be concerned about that. So let me, the podcast is great, Safety Doc from Johnny 5. I got to listen to your episodes. Hey, thanks. So yeah, this is episode 130. I've got a lot of stuff out there, a lot of interviews. Check out the one with John Steele, Escaping Seattle. That was wonderful. That was a fun show. So check that out. Hey Brian, yeah, I wasn't going to do a show tonight, but when prisoners break out, it's not an everyday opportunity when two prisoners in civilian clothes break out of a maximum security prison a couple miles from your house. It's just not an everyday opportunity, and no one knows where the hell they are. No one knows. They're probably listening to the show right now. They're like, hey, it went live stream, Safety Doc. Yeah, they're like having to do headphones. They want to be picked up, like if the drones are flying overhead. I'm just like, it just is freaking crazy. So Brian wrote, first, Red Crusader, we're nowhere near hard living yet. Yeah, absolutely. We're not. That's the part. And I'm nervous because it sounds cool to say this, but I kind of want, I want people to feel more pain. I want because I think people respond better. They understand where their parameters, their perimeters are of psychology and functioning. If you can't get things at the store, what else can we do? How can we share things? What other stuff? What if the internet isn't going to be as? I don't know, but I don't want it to feel like it's too easy. Like I think we also figure out who we are and what we're capable of when we're really stressed. Not that we have the stress that lasts again into the 100 days, but when we rush into things, it's like with the stock market. The stock market is artificially propped up right now. I mean, it's insane that it's at almost 24,000. It was 18,000 4 weeks ago. I mean, who the hell's buying right now? With unemployment numbers going up and who's buying retail, and retail stores are closed, and all this stuff just doesn't make sense. But it's artificially, to keep us from feeling. And I've always felt, as a former retired superintendent, kids need to feel academic rigor. They need to feel challenged, right? You got to bring them up to the point where they might fail. And if they fail, then you try a different way. You try it again. And then people kind of shied off. We don't want kids to experience failure because that's just cruel. Well, no, it's not cruel. It's part of life. To have them experience failure over and over and over and over again and not help them with ways to get over that hump, try to move beyond it. Yeah, that's cruel. But no, I mean, people fail. Yeah. I mean, I've never seen a baseball team in the major leagues go 162-0. So here's a story. Let me tell you the story. For first one, Brian wrote, I'm thinking more people are so stressed that they will die from a heart attack than COVID. Yeah, this is weird too, because I went out last night for the first time in a while and went running on the track. We have a high school track located a few blocks away. And I felt good. It was cold last night. It's like fucking 25 degrees, which is really cold for, middle of April. But it was a good night to be out running. Sky was clear. It's just a really nice night to be out. But I'm kind of thinking like, this is the time of year I'm much more active. I'm biking, I'm doing other stuff. And because of this, I've stayed closer to home. And, I really, I'm not in the best shape that I'm not in the shape I should be in. And yeah, I understand I can do stuff around the home, but it's just, it's hard because yeah, just kind of pick your poison with that. John Steele wrote, Doc, what do you think will be the long lasting changes in behavior after the crisis? So one is social distancing. I think will always be here. Like I think people will always keep a reserve of food. We had that. We had our cupboards. Now we have an additional pantry area. I think we'll always have that. I believe as long as I'm around and my wife, we'll always have this reserve. So those are things that will be lasting. Virtual education, I think will be lasting. I think dorms, university dorms are a thing of the past. That the conventional dorms, and I've heard that I teach for a university. I haven't heard from that university, but from other universities. I graduated at UW-Madison. I think schools having kids packed 25 in a classroom, you're probably going to see schools go to a model where, hey, we're going to go Monday, Wednesday for this group, Tuesday, Thursday for this group, and everybody's virtual on Friday. I think those type of things are definitely going to be lasting. And the way that we use the internet for meetings, right? That we don't have to be at face-to-face work. I think that whole work model and is going to change. I think those will be lasting things out of this. So, and I'll probably learn how to cut my hair. So yeah, I got to think about that a little bit more. But I think definitely virtual education, virtual work has moved there. People keeping a certain amount of food. I had Nick Schulaner on the show. Nick Schulaner is a college student in Washington State. And Nick said one of the things that changed for him with this is he's like, I'm always going to have the fastest internet router I can have for the money and like the latest technology, as long as like I'm not spending over the top for it. Like I'm always going to have that stuff because right now, if things go crazy and you got to use the internet, if you have a router, I put that router up. I have a router up here. In December, I put a new router in, and it can handle a ton of devices and stuff like that. And it's great because now my kids are on this. My wife, we got all the stuff that we're doing. If I had the old router, I'd kind of be screwed. So I think part of it is that here's people carrying battery packs with them, but I started to do that. We were going to go to Disney. We were supposed to be at Disney March 16th. We were supposed to fly out of Milwaukee down to Orlando. And what I've heard from, the folks at Disney is if we go back in a year, obviously social distancing for the rides, you're probably going to get a little buzz like on your phone when it's your turn and only let so many people get up and they're going to be doing that. But also you're going to be wearing masks. I mean, when we went to Disney back in 2017, part of the fun, of course, is they have the photographers all over the place, and you take your magic band and they take, they scan it and then they take your picture and you have all these interesting, fun photos. And now you're just going to be this family of bandits, right? You're just going to have the mask on and you're going to have all these pictures around Disney. It's going to look so weird, right? It's going to be weird. And also, what else is lasting, John, is I think this whole thing of the Stasi approach, or reporting thy neighbor for social gatherings and for other things, I think is going to stick. The websites are probably going to go away that are out there right now for social gatherings and stuff like that. But I think that whole mentality of is going to stick. And I've talked about it with Brian Bowden. I think we're closer to the social credit score than we were ever before. Like China went to it in 2019. Japan has it, but more. It's not as restrictive as it is in China, but a social credit score. So that your behaviors per some subjective entity or government are admirable. They gain you your 1,000 points, so you keep access to your planes and railroad, and that you can buy so much at a grocery store. And you gain those points also by reporting things that your neighbors are doing. Hey, they didn't put their recycling out, or they mix their recycling in their garbage, and you report stuff like that. I'm just really, I see that's become a very slippery slope. So Well, you wouldn't be crazy enough to go on a cruise ship. God, can you imagine who would do that? Like even beforehand, like that seemed like a really bad idea. Brian Bowden wrote, "Mask and gloves will be long lasting." Yeah, mask and gloves. I agree. You're just going to see that they'll be marketed. The schools too. Like you're just going to see these things in places. They'll just be standard practice that you're going to have these things if you're going into places. So I've, I, I, I just completely imagine that that's going to be there. So let me tell you let me wrap it up here with a funny story. This is a really good story. So back in the year was 2000. Okay. So 20 years ago, and I'm teaching in a small district, in Wisconsin, small school district. Right. And one of my friends in this district, he's the gym teacher. Okay. His name's Steve. And so I'm like, what, in 2000, I'm 29. Right. And Steve is maybe like 50. Okay. And so Steve is your stereotypical, gym teacher at an elementary level in 1990. Like every day is like, let's set up the bases and let's do kickball. Okay. That's kind of the way it was. Steve's a good guy, but like that was Steve. So anyway, so Steve has this collection of baseball jerseys, baseball memorabilia, the Milwaukee Braves. He bid on the scoreboard at County Stadium back when they took the stadium down, and he was going to have it taken by semi to his house and put up on the side of his barn. This is like how big of a fan this guy was. So anyway, as Steve's talking to me, he's like, "Hey, what about eBay? What's this eBay thing? eBay was new back then. What's this eBay like? Because I said, Steve, if you got on eBay, you could buy more baseball memorabilia. Like you could bid on this stuff. It's like so he goes, hey, can you help me set up an account? I'm like, no problem, dude, no problem. Stopped over at his place, and anyway, so I'm helping him. This is 20 years ago, right? 20 years ago. I'm setting up this eBay account and whatever. And he's like, okay, here's what his eBay login name is, his password. So I memorized the password, right? Of course, I memorized the password. And so then he's going in and he's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. So remember eBay 20 years ago, just starting out, but he's like seeing all these things. And here's a jersey, from the 1952 team I won. Here's a baseball. How do you bid on this? How do you set up an account? Back then, I don't know if there was PayPal. There was some weird, I think you either paid by credit card or you could wire the money. I don't remember, but it wasn't like as slick as a PayPal account. But here's the deal. Steve's watching all of this stuff and he's all excited about it. And then I log in later that night from my place and I can check the things that he put on his watch list, right? And one is this baseball. It's like a $10,000 starting bid. So I'm like, I'm going to have a little bit of fun with Steve. So I talked to Steve's friend, Kenny, the custodian. Kenny's a good guy. So Kenny and I are talking together, and I'm like, I'm going to play a trick on Steve. Just go along with it, Kenny. So anyway, I send Steve this message, and I'm like, congratulations, you're the highest bidder on this baseball. $10,000 and 45 cents or whatever. And I built this website. Remember, it's kind of like Wix, but I mean, like Homestead back then, you could build all these free websites. So I quickly whipped together a website 20 years ago. And I had this picture of this baseball and this big congratulations thing and all this stuff. And so anyway, like Steve gets this email. I made a fake email account too, like baseball guy 44 at, gravitymail.net or whatever. So Steve gets this, right? And, so of course he didn't bid on this. He didn't put out $10,000 for a baseball. His wife would kill him, by the way. So Steve, next day at work there, we're teaching, right? He's like, hey, would you have a chance? Like, can you get down here? Like, I'm like, yeah, like third hour. I've got some time. I can come down and see you. So I'm like, okay. I come down and I can play this stuff straight, like a straight face. And Steve's like, oh my God. He's like, closes the door. He's like, Dave, here's the deal. He's like, this eBay stuff. He's like, I got this email. And what is this? Like, did I win this thing? Because it's like $10,000. I look at him like, yeah, well, come on, congratulations, dude. He's like, oh, whoa, I didn't bid on this. I didn't do anything. I'm like, Steve, no, you must have. Like, what did you do? Like, there's a bidding. No, I'm sure I just had on to watch this. I'm like, dude, you bid on this. You won this. This is a legal contract, Steve. When you signed up for this, there's no backing out on this, dude. You've got to buy this. He's like, okay, I can't do this. I can't pay $10,000 for this. My wife and kid, he's going through this whole thing. And then, so he's sharing this whole story with Kenny, who is his confidant too. And Kenny's totally playing into it. He's like, "Oh God, you're so screwed, Steve. You are cooked. You're done on this." So Steve comes back to me. He goes, what do you think I should do? I'm like, "Well, email the guy." And the guy is me because I got the email address. He doesn't know this. So he's like, "Yeah, John Sealy did pay me." I don't know. I'm trying to do the story, but it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. So anyway, he's like, he emails and he said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to bid on this. And can you please put it back up for sale?" My wife, he got in this big email of like, "My wife would kill me. I'm just trying to learn the system," and all stuff. So of course, what do? Like, I email back to Steve and I'm like, "Listen, dude, this is a legal contract. You bid on this. You denied other people from being able to have access to this thing. And you need to, you need to pay up. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to think about it for 24 hours and see if there's anything else." So Steve, the next day he finds me. He's like, "Oh my God." He's like, I'm like, "Steve, how'd it go? How'd it go?" He's like, "Well," he's like, "The guy's still pissed, right? But I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance." So I explained to him what I'm doing. And I'm, of course, I know it because I get the email. I'm like, "I don't know, man. It's a toss up." I'm like, "Because you pretty much have to pay it, Steve. It's just the way that it is." He's like, "Yeah, I might have to do it. I might have to go down. I might have to do it. I don't know, but I hope I don't have to." So anyway, and of course, like, I'm not taking money from Steve at this point. All right. And I'm not interfering with this guy's bid that's on eBay at all. Like, this thing had just expired. Like, it didn't sell. Right. So it just vanished. Right. So I'm not trying to manipulate a system or screw people over, destroy anything here. So anyway, so I emailed Steve back the next day from this guy. And I'm like, "Listen, like, understand you made a mistake. Welcome to eBay. Hopefully you'll have more successful purchases, but I'm going to, contemplate relisting the item or putting it up in an auction. And just be very careful what you do in the future." So then, of course, Steve is like relieved, sends back this guy. Thank you so much, Fred. You're such a great guy. Like, you're right. Like, I need to be more careful on what I do and just all this stuff. So here's the thing though, like, I never told Steve that story ever. And so it's funny. Like, I'll still see him to this day, and we'll eventually like work around it. I'm like, "Remember that time you bid on that baseball and the guy like almost made you pay for it, and it would have been like 10 grand and your wife would have killed you?" He's like, "Yeah." And then the guy like let me off. He's like, "That was so cool. Like, people need to be like that." That's a good thing, Steve. I'm like, "It was good that happened. You learned your lesson, but it's also good. There's goodness in humanity, right?" I've got a lot of stories like that. A lot of stories. But I'm going to wrap this one up. Let me go back over to the chat room. Brian Bowden wrote, "Roads, bridges, and more really need it, and it's about time it gets done." Yeah. Why? What's the big holdup here on saying, "Hey, we're going to put $2 trillion into infrastructure"? What's the holdup on that? Red Crusader, if you go to parts of Ohio and most of what I've seen in Indiana, you'll know what I mean. So yeah. John indicating, yeah, they had PayPal back then. And I didn't do much on eBay until years later, but that was kind of his entry thing. What is a Bob Uecker baseball? Yeah, Bob Uecker, who played for the Milwaukee, what was it, Braves, and then the Braves moved to Atlanta, and now he's the announcer with the Brewers. But yeah, on the movie Major League, God, I loved it. Harry Doyle, just a bit inside, a little chin music. There's a hot shot toward the hole. Oh God, I miss Harry Carey. Look at the kid in the sombrero. What's his ERA? There's a triple play. There's a Budweiser. So yeah, I'm one of those types of friends, Brian Bowden. Great gag on this. Yeah, I did a lot of stuff like that. Nothing, I look back on that stuff, nothing that would get people genuinely in trouble or harm people. You never would do that. That's wrong, right? But stuff like this, that was spot on. Yeah, with Steve. And the fact, I just love it. We can go back to that story today. So yeah, it's hilarious. That's a really elaborate plan. Yeah, Cameron, I had a lot of people in on it. There was one other time we had Steve convinced here. Now this will be the last story. We had Steve convinced that his office was going to become the new nurse's station because it was next to the main office. So again, Kenny and I, we kind of always got stuff brewing on this, and so Kenny gets a hold of Steve, and we says, "Steve, this has to be a new nurse's office because for privacy, with kids, confidentiality, keeping more of the medications kids get and stuff like that. They need more space." So your office is going to be moved to the basement. So they actually moved some of Steve's stuff, like Kenny and there was another custodian. They moved some of Steve's stuff into the basement. It was just horrible, right? It's just like a card table and an old lamp. I don't even think they told the principal. Barb, she was oldest principal in the state of Wisconsin today. She's pretty cool, but she wasn't in on this at all. And then eventually, and Steve was just convinced Barb had it out for her. Oh my God. Like, Dave, she's always hated me since day one. I'm like, I don't know. See, she doesn't really talk about it. I mean, she doesn't like that you show up late for meetings. Like, that's obvious. But so he's convinced, Barb, she's got it out for me. And then, of course, like, we would always pull it at the last minute. Like, Kenny would say, Steve, Barb said, no, your office is going to stay there. They're going to work something else out. So in Steve's mind, he's always thinking, oh my God, I just dodged it again. Like that couple of years I worked up there with Steve, like every moment of his life, he was like just dodging stuff. So from his good friend Dave here, but he's a good guy. You got to do that. You got to bust his chops once in a while. So yeah, I did the red stapler from Office Space. Oh my God, that was funny. Steve, I did leave a message on his phone with a translator from English to Spanish, and I had them convinced it was a new Spanish-speaking family moving into the district, and they wanted to know about adaptive FIAD for their kid. So I pretended as I listened to this message that I was also interpreting the message at the time, and I don't speak Spanish. So I'm like, yeah, they want to know about adaptive FIAD and this. And Steve's like, I'm not certified in adaptive FIAD. And he's like, when did you learn how to speak Spanish? I'm like, yeah, it was a long time ago, Steve. I'm like, but what do you want to do? Like, they left a number out. What should I do when I call them? And of course, I'd make it go away. Oh yeah, they're moving to the district one over from us, so nothing to worry about. Yeah. So Brian wrote, I got university letterhead and would write to a select few that they had to leave school because their financial aid was canceled. Oh my God, Brian. That's something. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Wow. I didn't do that, but that's interesting. Wow. Okay. John, great show. Thanks, Doc. You're the best. Hey, I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody. This is an impromptu. Click the thumbs up, share it with other people. If you can, if you're not subscribed, please do. At some point, I'd like to get 1,000 subscribers. I'm not going to get my YouTube plaque, which everybody has for 100,000 subscribers, but maybe I'll get a postcard or something like that. So, all right, everybody, take care. Do your member checks, face validity, what's happening in your environment. Just don't tune into the TV. And I will have a blog post up with this to cover those points of what gets us through with morale during tough times, and also what torpedoes morale. So everybody, take care and stay safe. This is your good friend, the Safety Doc, here in southern Wisconsin, where we have 2 fugitives on the loose. So I need to go back to my post. And anyway, yeah, Red Crusader, you're airing at this time every Thursday. I got to do that. I got to set a time up. Like, that's a thing. I haven't been doing that. I have been doing. I usually do a lot of stuff I record ahead of time and then release it, but I've only started the live streams in the last 5-6 weeks with coronavirus. So this is kind of new to me, but I think you're right. Like, I want to come up with a set time when people are like, I can tune in if I want to at that time. And Wednesdays is Masculine Geek. Tuesdays is the Mallard Report. But Thursdays seems like a good night, especially if we're all going to be inside for a while. So everybody, take care. God bless. Protect the doc here. I am going to do a perimeter sweep here around my area. And again, maximum security prisons. They're not all they're cracked up to be. Andy Dufresne taught us that in the Shawshank Redemption. Take care, everybody. Oh, yeah, Red. Yeah, I'll air it. I'll come up with a time. Anyway, I'm supposed to be gone, damn it. I'm supposed to be like a ghost. Woo, 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 woo.